So let's talk about PHP 8.5's new NoDiscard attribute and why I think it's actually a really nice little feature added to the language. So let's take a look at some code. If we look over here, we've got this little class, this order service class, and it's just got two methods. So a process bulk orders and a process order. Now it's a really simple class I've just marked out for this this example. As you see, the process bulk orders takes an array of orders and it loops through each one, processes the order, and then it catches an exception if there is one thrown, and then it adds that exception into the errors array. So we've got an array of errors here of possible order issues, and it returns the error. Now in the function for process orders, all I've done here is just thrown an exception just to show what might go wrong here. So you've written this code, it all looks fine, everything works properly, and you go to implement that in your code base, and you instantiate the service class, and you just run the process bulk orders. Now at this point you might get distracted by a client, or something might go wrong on production, so your mind is taken away, and somehow this slips through, goes into production, and actually everything works fine for the next couple of weeks. No problems at all works brilliantly. But then all of a sudden you get a customer, they call up or they drop an email to sales and say, hey, what's going on, my orders haven't turned up. So of course you're tasked with looking up the problem. You go through and you check out the class, you go, well, everything looks fine, and then you realize to yourself, oh, I forgot to take the result of the function and check if there are any errors with it and handle it. Now this has happened, I've seen this in code bases, and I'm sure you would have seen this in code bases as well. So PHP 8.5 has this new attribute that you can add to functions, which basically tells PHP but also tells you as a developer that the results from this function you have to do something with. So just don't discard them. So I'm going to show you how to use that and the results from doing so. So let's just put that in, the attribute in. And there we go. So we've got this attribute NoDiscard with a message that you can attach to it. So when it shows the warning in the logs, you'll be able to see this message. So let's just run that now and see what happens when we do so. So as you can see, we've run it, and it's now given us a warning to say, hey, the return value of this must be used, or you can intentionally ignore this by casting it as void, which is another PHP 8.5 addition. So great, we've got a warning here. Of course, it's just a warning. Now if you are converting warnings to exceptions in your production environment, this is actually going to break your code base, so you're going to have some problems. Now where I think this really shines is when you combine this NoDiscard attribute with the pipelines, with your static analysis. So we at Jump24, we love PHPStan, so we use it on all our projects. We run it locally and we run it on our pipeline, so when we put PRs in, we have this run through and it will stop a PR being able to be merged if there's a problem. So I've set up PHPStan on this little project. Really simple, level 3 for now, and I've just told it to look at this file and tell me if there are any problems. So let's just run this and see what happens. Great. So PHPStan is now telling us, hey, there's a problem on line 42. The process bulk order, you're discarding the return value, you're not doing anything with it. So let's you've got to do something about that. So of course, as I mentioned, the first thing you can do to kind of suppress that warning, you could use the new void, because there might be instances where you call it and you don't actually need to do anything with the value. So not this method in particular, but you might have implemented a method that when you call it in certain scenarios, you actually don't care about the results. So if you put the void in, that will then stop the warning, which is great. That's what you want to happen. Excellent. But there's also another tool that we use a lot of called RectorPHP. Now you maintain large code bases for years. You upgrade them as they go along. You upgrade the versions of PHP. These code bases can get really big, and you've got a new addition like this. You want to add to certain methods. Say for instance, all your validation methods. You might want to add it to those because you think they're important. You want to make sure that you handle any results from them. Now you don't want to spend hours going through each class, each controller, trying to find those methods and add this attribute. Now RectorPHP is a great way for you to be able to do this on scale. So I've set up another really basic example here of how to do that in RectorPHP. So we've got this little config, and we're just saying, just read this file. We're using PHP version 8.5, and I want you to apply this rule. So we've written a custom rule that will look for a certain thing, and if it finds that, it will check the attributes. If it doesn't exist, it will add it on. So again, really simple example of how to do a rector rule. So we're saying to it that if the name of the method starts with process bulk, then we loop through and we just check if there is a NoDiscard attribute present. If there isn't, we will look to add that in. So let's just give this a go now. And we'll just do a dry run first to see the results. What would happen if we were to? Oops, sorry. It'd help if I spell that correctly, wouldn't it? Okay, so I've just done a dry run, and as you can see, it's basically told us that if you were to run this properly, I will be adding the NoDiscard attribute to the top of the function. So let's give that another go. Let's spell that right this time, and let's just run that. So there we go. So if we go back to the class now, there we can see, look, it's added the NoDiscard attribute for us. Great. So this will save you loads of time in your code base if you just create a custom rule like this that targets the specific functions that you're after and adds it all in for you. So it's brilliant. Now, obviously this attribute is a small addition into the new PHP 8.5 language, and I think it's a good one. I personally think it's really good. It's going to help catch a specific set of bugs that might have got into production. But of course, remember, it's just a warning. So if you're not converting your warnings to exceptions, it could be easily missed, because it'll be in your error logs, and it depends on how often you check your error logs, things like that. So it's important to remember that it is just a warning. Secondly, it doesn't really stop bad design practice. So you might have written some really dodgy code. It's not going to fix that problem. that problem's still going to be there. So it's important to remember that. Now, as I said, I really like this, and I can't wait to start using this on more of our projects. But I'd be interested to know what you think. Have you started looking at it? Have you started adding it to your code bases? Let me know. And don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you again. Thanks.